Assalamu alaikum. In this lecture, we will study another topic that are called data encoding techniques in digital communication, and then at the end we will discuss the pulse shaping topic in digital communication. Now, as far as data encoding techniques, earlier on in previous lecture we have learned about the basic overview of the line codes here. Again, in this lecture we're going to have a overview of a or short description about the line encoding techniques that we're going to use in digital communication. Now, as far as encoding process is concerned, before starting the data encoding technique, first we have to define the encoding and decoding in digital communication. Encoding is the process of converting the data or given sequence of characters, symbols, alphabets into a specified format for the secure transmission of data, while decoding is the reverse process of encoding, which is to extract the information from the converted format. Now, as far as encoders or decoders is concerned, you have studied about the basic encoding and decoding techniques or circuits in digital um, logic design course. Now we're gonna study some kind of techniques that we're gonna use in digital communication. Now, as far as data encoding is concerned, encoding is the process of various. I told you as earlier that encoding is the process of using various patterns of voltage or current levels to represent ones and zeros of the digital signals on the transmission link here. The common types of the line encoding that we're going to use are unipolar, polar, bipolar, and Manchester coding. Now, as far as encoding techniques are concerned, the data encoding technique is divided into the following type depending on the type of the data conversion. First one is the analog data to analog signals. The modulation techniques such as amplitude modulation, frequency modulation, and phase modulation of analog signals, they are the examples of the analog data to analog signals conversion here, or encoding technique as far as analog data to analog signals are concerned. Now, there is another type that is called analog data to digital signals. This process can be termed as digitalization as well, and this thing we have know that this thing is done by pulse code modulation that we have studied in our previous lecture. Hence, it is nothing. The pulse code is nothing like other than that the digital modulation scheme here. And we have already discussed about the sampling and quantization used in PCM. Then you already know that what were the drawbacks that we have gone through in PCM, and then we're going to move on to another scheme that was called delta modulation. So these all types, these modulation types are the basic example of an conversion of an analog data to digital signals. Now, there is the third type where we're gonna convert our signal from digital data to analog signals. For example, the modulation techniques such as amplitude shift keying, frequency shift keying, and phase shift keying fall under this category. And we have already discussed these techniques as well. Now, there's the last type as far as encoding techniques are concerned, that is called digital data to digital signals here. And as far as these techniques are concerned, we're gonna you can say we're gonna discuss these techniques in today's lecture, okay? And some of them are given below here. So they're gonna convert digital data to digital signals here. We're gonna start you can say from this topic of converting our digital data to digital signals from non-return to zero. Okay, so it is also called non-return to zero here, NRZ here, and as we have already discussed about the non-return to zero signaling as far as our previous lectures are concerned. So non-return zero codes has 1 for high voltage level and 0 for low voltage. The main behavior of non-return zero code is that the voltage level remains constant during bit interval. The end or start of a bit will not be indicated and it will maintain the same voltage state if the value of the previous bit and the value of the present bit are same here. The following figures explain the you can say the concept of a non-return zero coding. From here you can see that if we have a 1 bit here, we're going to represent it with this one, and if we have 0 here, we're going to represent with this one here. As there is no, you can say, observable bit interval, receiver may face difficulty in distinguishing from one 0 to another 0 here. There is no difficulty in finding one 0 to another 0. So this is about the non-return 0 coding. In above example that you have considered here, you can see that there is a long sequence of a constant voltage level, and the clock synchronization may be lost due to the absence of the bit interval, because might be clock will not see the different bit intervals here. So it becomes difficult for the receiver to differentiate between 0 and 1. If there is no synchronization between the clock and the incoming data or the bits here, then we might gonna, you can say, have a difficulty in in differentiating 0 and 1s at the receiver. So there are two variation as far as non-return 0 coding is concerned. First one is called non-return 0 level. Sorry, this is written NRZ-L, and we call this non-return 0 level. Okay, and there is a change in the polarity of the signal only when the incoming signal changes from 1 to 0 or from 0 to 1. And this thing we are defining here is because earlier on there was no such information here when we are using the journal NRZ coding here. It is the same as a non-return 0. However, the first bit of the input signal should have a change of polarity here. Okay, now there is another type as far as non-return 0 coding is concerned, that is called non-return 0 in dash I, or non-return 0 inverted. Okay, there's a problem in writing here. In writing this thing is written twice here actually. Okay, so if a 1 occurs as the incoming signal, then there occurs a transition at the beginning of the bit interval. For a 0 at the incoming signal, there is a no transition at the beginning of the bit interval. Non-return 0 codes have a disadvantage as well, that the synchronization of the transmitter clock with the receiver clock gets completely disturbed, that we have to I have told you earlier as well. When there is a string of 1s and 0, hence a separate clock lines needs to be provided here. Now we're going to move on to another type of encoding, that is called biphase encoding. The signal level is checked twice for every bit time as far as biphase encoding is concerned, both initially and in the middle. Hence the clock rate is double the data transfer rate, and thus the modulation rate is also doubled. The clock is taken from the signal itself. The bandwidth required for this coding is greater. There are two advantages of biphase encoding. First one, there are two types of biphase encoding. First one is called biphase Manchester encoding, and second one is called differential Manchester coding. So what is a biphase Manchester encoding? In this type of coding, the transition is done at the middle of the bit interval. The transition for the resultant pulse is from high to low in the middle of the interval for the input bit 1, while the transition is from low to high for the input bit 0 here. Now as far as differential Manchester encoding is concerned, in this type of coding, there always occur a transition in the middle of the bit interval. If there occurs a transition at the beginning of the bit interval, then the input bit is 0. If no transition occurs at the beginning of the bit interval, then the input bit is 1. The following figure you can see here illustrates the non-return 0 level, non-return 0 inverted, biphase Manchester and differential Manchester coding for different digital inputs. So for example, you can see the sequence of bits here that is represented 1 0 1 0 0 0 1 1 1. Now we're going to represent it with different coding schemes. First one is non-return 0 level. Here you can see here it's going to be represented with the positive pulse here. Then we're going to have 0 for this one here, and then we have a positive pulse here, and for 0 for this one here. So this is not return 0 here. As far as non-return 0 inverted is concerned, for example, we will gonna represent data like this, as we have discussed earlier as well. Okay, now when we're gonna remember here, we have a 1 here, so we're gonna represent it with the inverted pulse here. Till then we get the other one, then we're gonna invert it again here. Same is the case for this one. This is inverted and then inverted, and that's so on. That's how we're going to represent the non-return 0 inverted encoding. Now we're going to represent the biphase Manchester encoding. If we have a 1 here, we're going to represent it with the positive pulse here. Then because remember we are using the half bit duration here. Then we're going to represent it with this 0 until we'll get 0 here. Then we're going to invert it again, and then till then we get bit duration. Then after the half of the bit duration, then we're gonna go to another transition here. Till then again we're gonna at half bit duration we're gonna go to another transition, and so on. As far as differential Manchester encoding is concerned, we have 1 here, so we're gonna have a positive pulse here. Then when we're gonna have 0 here, we're gonna have a you can say a change in pulse here, and then it's like this. These are the four types that we have described as far as these encoding techniques are concerned. Now we're going to move on to another topic that is called block coding. Among the types of block coding, the famous one are the 4B/5B encoding and 8B/60 encoding in digital communication. The number of bits are processed in different manner in both of these processes. So for example, 4B/5B encoding, what is this encoding technique gonna tell us? As you see in Manchester coding, to send the data, the clocks with double speed is required rather than non-return zero coding. Here, as the name, you can say from the name here, 4 bit of code is mapped with 5 bits with a minimum number of 1 bits in the number in the group. And the clock synchronization problem in non-return zero inverted encoding is avoided here by assigning an equivalent word of 5 bits in the place of each block of 4 consecutive bits here. These 5 bits words are predetermined in a dictionary here. Now the basic idea of selecting a 5-bit code is that it should have one leading 0 and it should have no more than 2 trailing 0 here. Hence these words are chosen such that the transactions take place per blocks of bits here. Now what about the 8B/60 encoding here? We have used two signal levels to send a signal bit over a single signal, but if we use more than 3 voltage levels, we can send more bits per signal. For example, if a 6 voltage level are used to represent 8 bits on a single signal, then such encoding is termed as 8B/60 encoding. Hence in this method we have as many as 729. Remember, this one is 3 raised to the power 6 combinations for signal, and 256 2 raised to the power 8 combinations for bits here. This is the problem here. This is 2 raised to the power 8 here. This is 3 raised to the power 6 here. These are the techniques most commonly for converting digital data into digital signaling by compressing or encoding them for reliable transmission of signals here. Now we gonna discuss another thing in today's lecture, that is called pulse shipping. Now after going through the different type of coding techniques that we have discussed, we have an idea then how the data is prone to distortion and how the measures are taken to prevent it from getting effective. Because whenever we're going to convert it into some kind of a coding technique, then there is a chances of losing a data, or you can say there is a chances of a distortion here. So for you can say for getting our for getting or to establish a reliable communication, you can say we need some kind of things or some kind of precautions here. But first we're going to discuss about the distortion that we're going to face in digital communication. I told you in previous lecture regarding the important distortion that we're going to face in digital communication, that is called inter-symbol interference. Again, it's double writing here, is this one, and this is a mistake here. Okay, now as far as inter-symbol interference is concerned, this is a form of distortion of a signal in which one or more signals interfere with the subsequent signals, causing noise or delivering a poor output. Now the causes of inter-symbol interference are multi-path propagations, when the signal is coming from different paths. Okay, so that's the main, you can say, cause of the inter-symbol interference. And then we have another inter-symbol interference example, that is called non-linear frequency in channels. You have seen that in communication system course we have studied about the non-linear frequencies occurring in our channels. So that they're gonna cause inter-symbol interference as well. The ISA, the inter-symbol interference, is unwanted and should be completely eliminated to get a clean output. The causes of ISI should have been resolved in order to lessen its effect here. Now we're going to move on to another topic, that is called correlative coding. So far we have discussed about an ISI as that it is an unwanted phenomena and that going to degrade the signal. But the same ISI, if used in control manner, it is possible to achieve a bit rate of 2 W bits per second. So that's the advantage of a ISI as well. For example, if we're going to use this or ISI in a control manner, we're going to greater our bandwidth here. Okay, we're going to enhance our bandwidth, channel bandwidth here. Such a for example, if we have a channel bandwidth of a W hertz, we can send a signal that gonna be consist of or having a bandwidth of 2 W bits per second. So using hertz, we are converting our this bandwidth using ISI to 2 W bits per second here. or 2 bit 2W or 2W bandwidth here. Now such as a scheme is called correlative coding or partial response signaling scheme here. Okay, so since the amount of ISI is known, it is easy to design the receiver according to the requirement so as to avoid the effect of ISI on the signal. The basic idea of the correlative coding is achieved by considering an example for dual binary signaling here. Now the dual binary signaling, the name dual binary signaling means doubling the binary system transmission capability. Now to understand this, let us consider a binary input sequence AK consisting of the uncorrelated binary digits having a duration t seconds. In this, the signal 1 is represented by +1 and the symbol 0 by a -1 volts here. Now see here, therefore the do binary code input CK is given as the sum of the present binary AK and the previous value AK minus 1 as shown in the following equation. This is gonna be represented, this CK gonna be represented like this one here. Okay, where the CK is the output, and the sum of the and the sum of present binary digit is AK, and the previous is called in AK minus 1 here. Okay, this is about do binary signaling, but we're not going to use this one in our lecture in our course here, so we're not going to discuss about in detail about this thing here. Now I want to show you another thing, or I want to define you or introduce to another thing that is called I pattern as for digital communication is concerned. It is an effective way to study the effect of ISI in the I pattern. The name I pattern was given from its resemblance to the human eye for binary waves. The interior region of the eye pattern is called the eye opening. The following figure shows the image of the eye pattern here. Now see here, for example, we are seeing an ISI symbol here. So that will be the block diagram that we're gonna see for as far as eye pattern is concerned. You can see this is these gonna represent the time variation of our zero crossings here, and these are the amount of distortion that we are facing here, and this is the signal to noise ratio at the sampling point here, and this is the slope indicates that sensitivity to timing here. When we're gonna study you can say in detail about the line codings or line codings, or you can say the other coding schemes, then we're gonna have a detailed overview of that thing as well. Okay, so there is another term that is called jitter. It is the short term variation of the instant of a digital signal from its ideal position, which may lead to data errors. Jitter is basically stand for the, you can say when we're gonna study the analysis of the digital signals, and then the variation you can you can say the short term variation of the instant uh, of digital signal from its original ideal position, that is called jitter, uh, or it is also called, you can say, a type of a noise that we're going to face in digital signal layer. When the effect of ISI increases, traces from the upper portion to the lower portion of the eye opening increases, and the eye gets completely closed. If ISI is very high, an eye pattern provides the following information about a particular system. Actual eye pattern are used to eliminate the bit error rate and the signal to noise ratio. Now we're going to use another term, and we have already defined this thing, and that is called an equalization. Now for a reliable communication to be established, we need to have a quality output. The transmission losses of the channel and other factor affecting the quality of the signal have to be treated. The most commonly lost that we have discussed is the ISI. To make the signal free from ISI, we have to ensure a maximum signal to noise ratio, and we need to implement a method that is called equalization. Now to overcome the process of ISI, we need a method that is called equalization. Now this figure shows us the you can say equalizer or equalizer circuit. Here we have a digital source here that is creating a, that is you can say is coming from a that's a sequence of digital data, and then we're going to move on to pulse shaping block. We know that what is a pulse shaping block, and we're going to move on to analog channel here. Remember this one is an analog channel here. Then moving on to this analog channel, then this will become noise, and there's the addition of a noise and interference here. And what we're going to receive here, we're going to receive a received analog signal here because of this analog channel here, and then we're going to sample this signal, okay, this received analog signal, and then we're going to pass it through a linear digital equalizer to shape our signal back, and then we're going to pass it through a decision device and get our original signal back here. Now the noise and interference which are denoted in the figure are likely to occur during the transmission. The regenerative repeater has an equalizer circuit which compensates the transmission losses by shaping the circuit. The equalizer is feasible to get implemented. Uh, Now I'm gonna show you at the last some very important definition as far as and you have studied these definitions before as well. That is called the error probability and figure of merits. Here the rate at which the data can be communicated is called the data rate in digital communication. The rate at which the error occur in the bit while transmitting data is called bit error rate. Okay, now the probability of occurrence of bit error rate is called error probability, and the increase in signal to noise ratio decreases the bit error rate, hence the error probability also get decreased. In an analog receiver, figure of merit at the detection process can be termed as the ratio of the output SNR to the input SNR. Okay, the greater value of figure of merit will be an advantage here. So this is all about uh, the coding schemes and the pulse shaping techniques that we're gonna discuss in detail in our further lectures of digital communication. So thank you so much.